Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining my session. And my name is Michał Brygidyn. I work as a cloud solutions architect, but I also run the security department at my company, PGS Software. But I am also a security researcher, and this presentation is a result of my own research. Today, I want to tell you about simple and small misconfigurations in various cloud resources that lead to a full cloud account takeover. And let's start with Kubernetes. Usually, Kubernetes is used just to run your containerized apps, and it's usually configured securely. But in many cases, Kubernetes is misconfigured in a way that the Kubernetes API is exposed publicly. And if a resource is public, then anyone can try to connect to it. But there are many cases where Kubernetes is not only publicly exposed, but also role-based access control is disabled. And I don't know why people do it, but it's quite often configured that way. My automated scripts try to find these misconfigurations every single day, and every day I have some results. So let's start with Kubernetes. I found a Kubernetes API that was publicly exposed, and airbag was disabled. So I was able to extract secrets, config maps, and pods configuration from that Kubernetes. From secrets all are base 64 encoded just for easier way to store different variables. It's not like full encryption, so you can easily decrypt base 64 variables. And I was able to decrypt my first AWS Amazon Web Services access keys directly from Kubernetes secrets. But this key pair of access keys only gave me access to S3. S3 is a service on AWS that let you store your files. There were some interesting files on S3, but it's not what I was looking for. So I was looking deeper, and also in config maps of this Kubernetes, I found Jenkins admin credentials. So I looked at a list of running pods, and there was Jenkins application running on one of the pods. And now two different ways of accessing Jenkins app. First of all, maybe just try jenkins.example.com, and maybe there is a public Jenkins running for that company. And the second approach is to forward Jenkins port on Kubernetes, and using kubectl, you can forward a port, usually 8080, and you can access Jenkins running on that Kubernetes from your own machine, just opening localhost on port 8080. And I was able to log into that Jenkins using admin credentials, and with admin access, I could do everything, like checking workspaces. If a job ran at least once, there was a workspace for that specific project. And in one of the workspaces, I found configuration file. And this configuration file contained another key pair of AWS access keys. But this time, I was able only to access SQSQ and Lambda functions. So yeah, a bit more than just S3, but still not everything. So I was trying to find another way to extract something more. Then Jenkins credentials. When you store anything in Jenkins credentials, it can be decrypted easily if you have access to manage Jenkins page or Jenkins script console. So I was able to extract valid GitHub credentials, GitHub or GitLab, but valid credentials, so full access to repositories of that company. But then I also checked console logs from one of the jobs, and I noticed that the job was communicating with AWS API using CLI calls. So I I needed a way to do it as Jenkins, to communicate with AWS as Jenkins. So using kubectl, I started a shell. I started a bash on Jenkins pod, and voila, Jenkins was using IAM role with full admin access on AWS. So starting from a public Kubernetes API, I was able to get full admin access on AWS account because of small misconfigurations. And now, what went wrong for that in that case? First of all, public resources. I don't know why, but people think that a random IP is safe because no one knows that it's there, but it's wrong because there are some search engines like Shodan, Census, Binary, Zumai. These search engines scan the whole internet and they ping all ports on all IPs all the time. So when you create something new, they already know that it exists, and I just need to know what to ask for. And it's not like if something is on the internet, it's not safe. And also many non-production environments are left vulnerable because they're not part of penetration tests and audits. Because, and this is the real answer, only our production environment has to be compliant. So okay, who cares about non-prod? And it runs on the same account, but it doesn't have to be compliant. Yeah, why not? Also, risky design, because so some companies say that they have developers all around the world and they don't want to pay for VPN. So just let's make it public. Maybe we will be safe, or maybe someone who finds it will not know what to do with it, or maybe even no one will find our endpoints. Also, what went wrong? Disable security features. If there is a security feature, enable it. Use MFAs, use encryption, etc. And if it's enabled, like role-based access, do not disable it, and just use it because it's not safe. As I mentioned before, a random IP is not safe. Also, some companies were not using an encryption at all because they said that if we are going to use encryption, we would need to decrypt everything, and it's a lot of work to implement it, blah blah blah. And hey, thank you. If you are not encrypting your security things, sensitive variables, etc., yeah, even better. I can just read plain text. Also, firewalls. If you have firewalls like security groups on AWS, configure them properly. Secure access to your resources. If you have a non-prod environment, lock it so no one other than your development team can access it. If it's not a customer-facing resource, then why it's public? And yeah, principle of least privilege, something that is not being followed. And when I ask different companies why everyone is admin on that particular system, they say that, well, we don't want to manage their access all the time, so we just give them admin access to everything, and maybe they will need this type of access one day. And thanks to that, if I get access to their resources and to their user, I also have full access everywhere. And CI/CD tools. So when you use, for example, Jenkins to build your cloud, usually the tool has full access to your cloud. And that's not bad if you really use it to build your cloud. But what is bad if your users also are admin users on that tool, because then they can exploit the tool and they can gain admin access on the environment that they don't have access to directly. Also, a very common scenario, running apps and containers as a root user, because everything works if it's a root user. So yeah, it's a bad idea, because if everything works and I get access to that container, to that application, I can install whatever I want, I can do whatever I want because it's a root user. Let's move to another example. This one starts with Symfony Profiler. Symfony Profiler is a tool. Symfony is a PHP framework, and Symfony Profiler is a tool used by developers to see what's going on with their non-production version of the application. It shows you the configuration of the server of the application, and also it shows you all server parameters in plain text, of course, and it can, in specific versions, it can also open project files, so it's possible to open a parameters YAML file. But the most interesting part is that the profiler tool, it records all requests made by users. So if there is a request to a login page and it's a post request, it usually contains login and password, of course, plain text. So I was able to get to that publicly available Symfony Profiler for one of the companies, and I extracted login and password for that application. Using that login and password, I was able to log in to the internal app on the dev environment. This user was admin user because who else is using non-production environment? And I was able to get to that dev environment, but the dev environment had a domain dev.example.com. So what will happen if I remove the dev part and just try to log in on example.com? Voila, it worked. Because the same user existed in production database. So I was in. And there was no MFA, nothing like that. I was just in. So I was able to see what's there, what's available in this internal app. And there was a page with a single sign-on to many different internal apps like production CRM, for example, or a webmail. And when I opened that webmail, I saw a lot of emails from AWS, like invoices or trusted advisor emails. So yeah, first idea, maybe this is a root user email and I can just log into that user on AWS. And this is what I tried to do. I tried to reset the password for that user, and yeah, the user existed. So I got a reset password link on that webmail. And I reset the password. There was no multi-factor authentication on that root user. So, hey, I'm in. And bingo, it's the organization management account. So it's not only one AWS account, but all AWS accounts, because there were all features enabled for that organization. And I was able to get admin access on all accounts of that company. And yeah, it was a big finding. But why it was possible? First of all, do not reuse production data on a non-prod environment. As I mentioned before, non-prods are not safe because you forget to scan them or add them to a pentest list. And it's a very common scenario where customer asks you to check or to investigate this issue, and it only exists on prod. So what's the easiest way to do it and not to do it on prod? Copy the database and use the database, the production database on non-prod, and then you can do whatever you want. But it's not a good idea because, first of all, you have access to prod data, and that's not good. And then if the non-prod is not safe, I can access it and I have access to production data. If you are not copying the whole production data, but you are create your own fake one for a non-prod same volume of data, but you want to use the same username and password on all your environments because it's easier for you to remember. And if you remember your password, that's bad. But if you are using this and I extract your username and password from non-prod, I have access to a prod environment. Not good. And also, there are cases where companies run all their environments on a single cloud account because they don't know how to do it better. They don't know that they can run multiple accounts and different environments with different accounts. And yeah, sometimes it's just easier to manage everything single account. And if I get access to admin credentials for the cloud from non-prod environment, it's the same account as prod environment. So I'm an admin on both environments at once. Sometimes I found an email account and multiple services, external services were registered on the same email address. It's AWS organization master account. Sometimes it's Office 365 admin, GitHub organization owner, and I asked them why. So the answer was, "Oh, we had a single person running all of them, so it's all in one place." And yeah, he left the company a few years ago, but we are still using the same email account. Okay, sometimes multiple people using same email account, and they don't know yet what is a distribution list, so they use a single email account, single inbox. They share credentials, and in case someone is on vacation, someone else has access to that inbox. And because of multiple people using this, they are not changing password because someone else is using the same password, and I don't know how to share passwords. So yeah, let's keep this password forever. No MFA, multi-factor authentication. This is a big deal because usually if you have MFA, you are somehow safe. But if you are not using MFA, then I just need your login and password and I'm in. So make MFA required in your applications, because if it's not required, people will not set it up for themselves just to make their login process longer. And if you are not setting the MFA because it is a shared account, then rethink the idea of shared account and maybe create dedicated accounts for your developers and for your users, and then let them create the MFA. Also, if you are thinking about implementing MFA, do it properly and implement it in a way that allows you to use YubiKey or other physical device instead of just the application, because yeah, thanks to the recent news from one of the hackers groups, you know that you can bump the MFA with multiple requests in the middle of the night, and one of the requests will be successful because you want to sleep, so you want to silence them, and they will just press okay, allow, I'm sleeping. And now we are moving to the last one, the last scenario, and this one starts a bit funny because it starts from a public GitHub repository. And I don't know why people still use public GitHub repositories for their commercial stuff, for their projects, for customers. Okay, it's free and it's available, but usually big companies have their own repositories somewhere, and it's usually a bit safer than public GitHub repository. But let's stick to it. I found a repository with I found a lot of repositories with config files with plaintext credentials, but this particular scenario is a bit different because the config file had plaintext variable names, but encrypted variable values. So it was interesting because it was something new, and I was looking for a way to decrypt it. But to decrypt it, you need to find a way how it was encrypted and what secret key was used to encrypt it. So I checked the repository and found a Java class, and there was a full decrypt function with a hard-coded secret key. Okay, why not? So I was able to decrypt Office 365 credentials. Using these credentials, of course, no multi-factor authentication required, I was able to log into the Office 365 account. And this account had a lot of subscriptions and a lot of applications available, like Teams. So it was possible to just open a web version of Teams and say hello to CEO, CTO, or other C-levels. But also it was possible to extract some data. First of all, from Outlook, if you have access to Office 365, you can open Outlook and open calendars of whoever you want from that company. You can check the list of users from Azure Active Directory. You can see what groups they have, what distributions list they have, and of course you can try to open other interesting apps with some customer data. But I was looking for a way to get to their AWS because I knew that they are using AWS because there were some AWS related information on that repository. So I opened SharePoint, and there were some files related to a project for internal admin, something like that. And there was a PDF file with a Jira configuration guide. And this guide was really nice, step-by-step guide how to install Jira and how to configure it. And the last page, well, when we installed it, we created admin user, and this is a login of that admin user, and this is the password if someone is asking. Okay, thank you. Now I just need to find the endpoint for that Jira, and Jira endpoint was public for the company, so jira.example.com, and using the login and password of admin, I was able to log in, no MFA. So as admin of Jira, I had access to all projects there. So I found a project with AWS in the name. And in that project, I was looking for something that can lead me to next steps. But it was a bit better because one of the tasks was to create a user, and the user would be used by external service. It was a vulnerability scanner or something like that, and there was a comment, plain text comment in that task with access and secret key. That easy. Okay, let's try. And when I tried this combination, oh, that user is admin on that account. Thank you. What went wrong here? First of all, hard-coded sensitive data. Do not store any credentials, keys, secrets in a repository. Just don't do this. There are different tools that are a lot better to store your sensitive data, to store your credentials, secrets managers, Vault, anything other than your application code. And it's a good idea to start using secret management tools right now if you are not using one, because if you store your credentials in a repository, it's not safe, not only because the repository can leak to outside world, but sometimes people leave projects. Believe me, they leave projects, they leave companies, they switch companies. And is there any process to invalidate and rotate all those hard-coded credentials whenever someone leaves the project? I don't think so. So they can still remember, or they can still have a copy of that repository on their machine. So if they leave the company, but they still have access to all their data. Also, if you are using encryption and decryption in your project, do not store the encryption key in the same place that you have your logic, because it's easy to just grab it and use it if someone has access to this source code of that encryption logic. And what is also very common, if you know that it's bad to push something sensitive to repository, but you did it, not enough just to override it with some dummy value. There is a Git history, and Git remembers everything. So it's easy to extract the value from your previous commit. So it's not only important to override it, but also to invalidate the data that you shared by incident. So change the password, rotate the key, and then you may feel a bit safer. Also, bad tool selection. I don't know why, but one of the answers for public GitHub repository was hey, I am not a developer. I am a guy from support, and I just need to read the ticket and reply to it, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to make my life easier, and I implemented a script that replies to every single ticket. Hey, I am working on it, because someone asked me to reply to every ticket in 10 minutes. So yeah, my script is doing this for me. And here is my script. And I don't know any other tools. This one is public. So I just used it and pushed my credentials, my SMTP credentials to that repository. Also, when you create a new user or new access secret keys for someone in your project and you want to share them, it's not a good idea to share them using the same channel, like sending both on Slack, on Teams, in a single message, even sending them in a single email. Why it's bad? Okay, imagine that you are presenting your screen to someone or to a group of people, and you have a very wide screen, and then you share it all because you don't know how to share the single window. And then you have your Slack on the other side of that window. And when you show something on the right side of your window, on the left, someone just shared a login and password to something, to a tool with you. So while you are showing, presenting something, your viewers, they can just grab this login and password and log in and do whatever they want. It's a lot better to send one thing like a login on Teams and then a password on email, or even a password using a secrets management tool sharing feature. Or if you really need to share both on Teams, then you can just use a service like a One-Time. It's a web service where you paste your something, a secret, a password, or whatever, and the service generates a one-time use link for you. And you can be sure that that the person who you're sending this to is online, and they really want to get these credentials now. Send the login and send the link. When they click the link, they can copy the value, put it in their own password manager, and when the link leaks and if it's clicked again, there is nothing in it. It was destroyed. So a lot better and safer. And of course, do not share any credentials in Jira tasks, Jira credentials, Jira comments, or hard code anything in PDF files. It's not a good idea. And yeah, lack of security awareness, that's the biggest problem. Sometimes people are asked to do something and they are doing it thinking only about the functionality that they were asked to deliver and not thinking about the security. So they don't think what is possible, what may happen if I do something like that. That was a big issue when I was trying to create security training materials for my company, how to share not only the knowledge to what may happen, but how to share all possible risks, what will happen if they don't follow the rules or if they only partially follow the rules. So it's hard to share it in a way that people will really do it or don't do something. But if you're asked to share credentials somewhere, do not just paste them in a place visited by many people, because not only your ticket owner will see the credentials, but everyone can do it. Also, if you are configuring a tool, do not put admin credentials anywhere in the configuration guide for that tool. So yeah, I asked the company why they did something like that, and they said that there was a group of 3 junior developers asked to do that, and they had to document every single move. So yeah, this was one of the things to do, to provide login and password for admin users. So they documented it. They were not thinking about the possible outcome of putting valid admin credentials in that file. And if you have to send emails from your application, it's really not a good idea to use your own domain user credentials. Usually, you can ask for some service account, and if not service account, you can ask for a dedicated account for your use case to send emails from the app. And instead of storing hard coding credentials in your source code, configure the app to ask for temporary credentials from Password Manager. And that's all from me. Thank you, and have a great day.